Yes, thank you. So I will start with the number one. Where are we so far when it comes to the annual message? So yes, there are preparations currently ongoing. There is a team from the executive, the legislature that are working assiduously, working to ensure that the SONA is successfully held. The team have been meeting. The legislature, in fact, of most recent, the update that I received was that they both, the Senate and the House of Representatives, they've met. They're especially on the decision of the venue, because we know the legislature portion of it was gutted by fire, and they are working on sending a final decision to the president or the executive on the venue of the annual message. And once that is communicated to us here, we will let you all know where the venue will be. But other activities are ongoing. GSA and the rest of the team that normally work on the SONA, they're all, in course and working together to ensure that it's successful. As to specific details of the venue, as I mentioned, and other details that are necessary, we'll be giving you those updates as we receive them. On the question of the suspension of NEC bus, whether it was more political than investigative, absolutely not. It wasn't political. I can tell you that I'm sure you do recall a while back that the Office of the President, during the impasse when it started with the staff, when the complaint came and there were long-term protestation back and forth, there was a team that the president set up from here that was in charge of that investigation, went to the National Elections Commission, held meetings with different segments of the team there, including the aggrieved employees. And then there was a letter written on the directive of the president by the Minister of State to the NEC boss to, hold on her different actions that she was taking, particularly not to shut down the office for a period of a month, also not to dismiss or the employees that were there. And those, specific actions that she was advised, to withhold those actions. Unfortunately, they weren't adhered to. So, of course, the investigation was ongoing and then back and forth, and the advice came that the action that was taken very recently was the best plausible and possible action should be taken. Whether it was legal, absolutely, as you all know, that the president has the authority to suspend or dismiss or take action against officials that are that are members of the executive. And the NEC is one of those institutions that is a member of the executive. And the president, yes, I do understand, or we do understand that there are constitutional benchmarks, especially because NEC is one of those institutions that are within the Constitution that is a tenure. We understand all the lingering question. However, whether or not the president legally acted, absolutely, the president can take action with those institutions for a cause. And the letter that was written explicitly stated in those. And because it's a suspension, I can confirm now that there have been a number of conversations happening concerning the status and what's going to be the next course of action. And I can tell you it is a very active discussion. The president have had meetings with the rest of the Board of Commissioners, including the suspended chairperson of the NEC. And the interest of the president is to ensure that NEC remains a stable institution, that NEC remains void of, any political challenges, issues that will undermine the independence and integrity of NEC, and that that institution should remain strong enough where any member of the commission, whether the chairperson or any other member, will work in line with the laws and rules governing the institution. That is, not to work in isolation, but in consonance, and specifically what the law says, that all decisions should be with the acquiescence of the rest of the members of the Board of Commissioners. So the interest of the president is to ensure that that institution is strong and is strengthened, and he will do everything legally possible to ensure that that happens. So I can again confirm that there are active conversation happening, and you will be communicated to as to the next course of action. But yes, the action was indeed legal, and the president has legal authority as per the Constitution and other legal instruments to take the action at which he took. In terms of, you said 30%, okay, the arrest agenda for inclusive development. So the arrest agenda for inclusive development, yes, it's a budget that was allocated, and absolutely the county development fund or the county development plan do not work in isolation of the overall agenda. They all work to support one another. So yes, it's a broader agenda and to implement. So there will be projects or programs that are national based, or the institutions that are broad based. So for example, if you take a sector like the energy sector, we know the energy sector is a major sector, or even infrastructure sector. So, but at the county level, you'll have those, program that will also be within the agenda. So for example, if the agenda talks about infrastructure or road development, so say in Grand Cape County, for example, if the highlight is to ensure that the road from Medina to Rabosport is built, within the county development plan, you'll have that project listed. And the arrest agenda will also speak to that. So resources will be, so there will definitely be projects that will be broad-based, and then there will be county-specific projects that cut across. And that's where both the overall agenda and the county development plans, they speak to each other. And then the most important part of this is that they both, there is a monitoring and evaluation mechanism that the team at the Ministry of Finance will put in place, so that yes, it's a 5-year plan, but then there's also an annual, work plan. There's an annual checking. There's an annual evaluation to see where we are. And interestingly, as you know, all of the ministers did sign their performance contract. So the understanding is that every minister who's heading a sector, or not necessarily having to head a sector, but heading an agency, and that agency is supposed to perform based on the arrest agenda and the county development plan, they both will work, hand in hand. So if you're not able to achieve what is laid out, then you will definitely be called into, questioning and to see. So the goal here is to ensure that our development plans work in consonance of one another, and not one doing and then not doing, overlapping. Because one of the other issues that has been across government for many years is this issue of overlapping. There's limited resources, but people are doing different things. Everybody doing almost same thing, but they're not talking to each other. But the goal here is to ensure that this is connected. The overall plan, the county plan, and the individual, plan, and that those agencies and those institutions and ministers will also supervise and spearhead those ones. That's why they have the different cluster group, or you will, where you have the plan, the group that is in charge of the economy, the security sector. All these different working groups are there to make sure that this, happens and work out perfectly. So the ninth isolation. On the question of assets declaration, I've said this, and the president has taken a number of different action, and he also encouraged. Again, as soon as the president makes or takes an additional action, I will definitely inform all of you on that. But yes, this is something that the team have updated the president as to the current status, and he will be making some decisions shortly. Yes.
Yes, again, Julius from 420. Just in the course of this week, there have been issues of corruption, quote unquote, from two key government agencies, allegations, and you name it. One is from MPhil and also the Liberia Broadcasting System. What's the president's stance on the fight against corruption, especially from two key agencies or institutions of government?
Yes, Mr. Workforce, women at work. My colleague asked a question relating to government official declaring the asset, and you responded by saying the president has taken some actions. Would you love to be definite or specific that what are those actions that the president has taken? That's one. And I asked this question the last time, but I didn't get the response that maybe the media actually have wanted. The news of the private jet by the president. Can you tell us whether the Liberian government spend any money for the president to use private jet, for official trip, or they can't gesture? What can you say about this private jet issue? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Joseph Daniels again. Just a follow-up on the first question we asked concerning the NDC issue. When the statement was released, which I have for me here, the statement cited that the president cited section 2.1 and section 2.10D of the election law, which has the authority to conduct NEC affairs in the board which the head of NEC violated. I'm wondering why this statement did not also carry the law which gives the power to the president in order to, suspend or expel an official of the NEC. Could you do that for us, Madam Press Secretary? It would be very much significant, because in this statement we see law referencing what the NEC was violated, but we didn't see any reference as to the authority that the president carries in that, because he has been criticized for doing that. And on the arrest agenda for inclusive development, one thing that I also observed is the priority given to maternal and newborn death in Liberia. To what extent does the president consider this as a threat to Liberia that he's so eager to work on to include it in his 5 years agenda? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I was actually trying to pull out the Constitution here to tell you exactly what you wanted to hear, but I will pull it out shortly. So let me start with the question of the issues of corruption with NPhil and LBS. So I can confirm that, yes, there have been some information around the National Public Health Institute as to individuals within the institution who were involved in some act of corruption. And the institution have taken some actions. And once the president is adequately briefed, and then what action he takes, I will also inform all of you. With the issue of LBS, I'm not quite sure. And the other thing about the presidency, when these institutions, there are allegations of corruption, the expectation is that a proper process will be in place. So where there's an allegation, for example, the expectation is that a report or note or some update is sent to the presidency, and then the president can intervene or find out what the situation is by setting up a committee. But as you know, LBS has a board, and issues relating to internal issues, the board get informed about it. If there's a need to elevate it to the issue of the presidency or the president, that will happen. And then also you want to be able to make sure that not everyone will just say, oh, there's an allegation here, allegation there, and then you jump on it. But I also do know that the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission has the authority where the allegations or perceived corruption in any of the public institutions, they have the legal authority to intervene, to take cease of the matter, to investigate. So I hope that those institutions or that quote unquote issues relating to corruption, and LACC can also intervene to ensure that the right things gets done in those institutions. On the president, whether the president is taking action, so up to, the president have only been briefed that I know of Enfield, but LBS, as we know, is developing. We do know there have been some internal issues, staff problems, and back and forth with the administration. But to ensure that whether that was corruption or whether the president intervened, it's not getting to that point. And you want to also make sure that not every internal issues the president, gets involved with it. That's why you have institutions like the CSA, you have the board, you have these different administrative structures that they're able to intervene to put things under control before it gets to the level of the president. Once it gets to the level of the president, meaning now it means that there's no other way to solve the problem. So the president will be interested in ensuring that at those levels, problems are solved before they get to his, except where what someone would say a wanton act of corruption or other major issues that concerns his attention. Because of course the president is really very busy with a number of national and state related matters. So why the letter that the president wrote did not reference his authority? Joseph, I don't think the interest is to the fact that the president is the president. He decides the language in which to write institution, but to think that every time he writes, he should say, I'm writing you, or I'm taking this action because section this point this or constitution chapter and article gives me this authority to do that. I think it goes without saying. The fact that the president is writing you and taking such an action, the president is within the law to do so. So he doesn't have to come and say, I am writing you because constitution article 6.6 give me the authority to do that or whatnot, the president writes how the president writes and how he wants to write an institution. If there, for any reason, if there are any issues, for example, if the person who was writing or anyone have issues, that's why it's a country of law. If the aggrieved party feels that they're not in the legal bounds, you take action. You go to court, you get other interpretation and question the legality. But as an institution of the executive, the president has a right to dismiss or to take actions in line with the law. And specifically, it says for a cause. And the president acted for a cause, and he took the action. And as I explained earlier explicitly, that even though the suspension is on, the active action going on, conversations happening, the president had a meeting with the members of the board of commission. And, because the interest of the president is to ensure that NEC is stable and the integrity of that institution remains intact. And there's any interest of any form of, political interference and manipulation, if that is your bigger question. But no, the president has no interest whatsoever in that light. So he will do everything possible to make sure that NEC remains as independent as it was, and to make sure that they, as an institution, follow their own rules and the rules governing the country. On the issue of maternal and newborn, this arrest agenda talks about many other issues. And within the health component, maternal and newborn health remains paramount concern within the health sector. And having it as a key area within the agenda tells us that the care should be given to the young generation, the newborn, ensuring that mothers do not die while giving birth or while giving life, and that women health, very important, because we know in this country there are places where women suffer when it comes to access to basic health care. I can share with you all a very traumatic issue or story that happened. I remember when during the course of the campaign, we had gone to Gola Kone, and You know, those of you who are familiar with Kula Fofana, it's a long stretch, especially during the rain season from TNE all the way to Wendy, going a very bad road. I had to pick up a pregnant woman who was walking for miles to come to see a health facility. It took her such a long time. So luckily when we saw her, we asked her where she was going. And the nearest health facility was almost 2 hours drive. Imagine a pregnant woman walking on that. So it is a very important, you know, part because maternal health is pretty much the foundation of healthcare. Because before you grow up, you have to be born, and your mother have to give birth to you. And if we can really take care of the maternal health and ensure that we don't have newborn dying that early, you know, and ensure that we have a strong healthcare system and children reach their 5th birthday all the way up to until they're adults, you know, just the healthcare system should be strong enough to support that. And the interest of the president in this arrest agenda is to make sure that that happens. On the question of a private jet, first of all, Sylvester, the president, majority of the president's travel out of Liberia, the international travel, he travels commercial. And the fewer time that the president has traveled on flights that are for other chartered services, very few. And those times they're out of necessity. I'll give you a very practical example. So when the president went to Abuja, sometime last July, I was on that visit. The president rolled in a commercial flight. And, you know, when the state visit is happening and there are leaders coming from everywhere, there is a whole ceremony where leaders come in their individual flight or jet or however you will, and come to the tarmac. There's a review of the guards of honor. There's a full ceremony. So normally all of the presidents, almost all of the presidents who are gone to such a ceremony, travel there on their own or private flight or charter flight. And there's a whole ceremony. The red carpet is brought in front of the flight. And unfortunately for our president who had traveled on commercial, on an ASKY flight, it was a very embarrassing time. I was on that flight. In fact, when the president came out of the aircraft, because it's a commercial flight, they had to go to where the passengers are supposed to disembark. And because he's supposed to come on the tarmac, they had to bring the vehicle on the tarmac from all the way where the VIP activities was happening, the guards of honor, where they had to come there. And the president had to come through the side of the plane. You know, those of you who have flown in different planes, you will see they have the regular entry on the side of the plane, where sometimes when there's extra baggage, the flight attendants and others will take that and carry it to where they're supposed to put the baggage on the side of the plane. He had to get out of there and stood on the tarmac for almost 10 minutes because there were challenges with security clearances to get the cars from where the VIP was to come on the tarmac to where the commercial flight should park, because other passengers are on board. It's a big flight. It doesn't have to go over there. And before the team got there, it was almost between 5 to 10 minutes. Very embarrassing scene. Finally, the vehicle came. All of them came and walked through, went to where the activities was happening. And in fact, all of the team there, they didn't understand. I mean, our counterpart from the other place, they didn't understand why it was like that. Very embarrassing. There's a ceremony. So sometimes flying on charter flight is out of necessity. Very important for the president to do. And also sometimes when he's traveling to very important meetings where it should take you a short while, because it's a commercial. I've been with the president on some visits where you see the president will transit sometimes a couple of hours in one plane or in one airport. He sits there waiting to get to his next destination. Sometimes it's hours. Sometimes you have to even do short stay, because if you somewhere and then the flight is the next day or the next hour, you have to stay there for go and get a hotel that you're not going to sleep, a short stay in a place before you get on board your actual flight. It has been really very embarrassing at times. So where there's a necessity, the president travel on a charter flight. And majority of the time, I can say it has not been out of state coffers. It has not been out of state coffers. So again, I understand there have been a lot of concerns about, oh, the president's traveling privately, but majority of the president's travels and his visits have been on commercial. Either Brussels, Ethiopian Airlines, Askai, and you name the rest. Majority of his travels. Few of the travel that was very necessary or that were very necessary. In fact, the most recent one, when he went to Abuja, again at the ECOWAS summit. The ECOWAS summit, as I mentioned, there's a whole ceremony. As you disembarking your aircraft, the red carpet is rolled in front of the stairs. You just walk there. You have your delegation come and welcome you. The other delegation from the country welcomes you. There's a cultural performance, and there's a lot of other things that happen before you are welcome, and you stand under the shade. They receive you with the guard of honor. You walk around and inspect the guards. In those instances, and in those very important instances, the president takes privately chartered flights. So I hope that this explanation and this understanding will lay this whole issue of quote-unquote private jet. Majority of the president's travel have always been commercial. But where it is so necessary, there are places that he has to be urgently. And because you can wait for commercial flight for all these years, all this time, and the passengers have to move, and the challenges, sometimes it's even more cheaper at times. Because the time you're going to transit to another place, you have to transfer to another plane, you have to wait, and all of those. So I hope that, again, like I said, this explanation put to rest the issue of the private jet. The president has majority of the time. And maybe if the question about, I heard people were asking earlier, whether the government, because someone suggested the procuring of a private jet. I can explain to all of you that is not the president's priority at the moment. The priority of the president is to work for the Liberian people, in the interest of the Liberian people, and solve the most critical challenges as we have today. Challenges of food security, maternal and newborn health, and other major issue, electricity. So currently, to acquire a private jet, it is not within the immediate priority of the president. Thank you. So with that, we have, yes, please.
I said it due to some issues we have to go on the chat flight. And can you mention how much do we pay for charter flight? And also, if he's receiving flight, who are those he's receiving the flight from as gift? Are they business people? Are they state parties? Can you be specific to give us some of this information?
Well, I can't, because I'm not in the part of the business side to know how much we pay for the flight. I think the administration